To one of our top stories this morning, AfriForum's come out in support of the Black Monday campaign to remember those killed in farm attacks. The campaign sparked controversy with questions about why it's only highlighting farm murders. The head of AfriForum's community safety, that's Ian Cameron, is in our Pretoria studios for us this morning. Ian, a very good morning to you. And let's start with that question about, we know that there's a growing trend of violent crime. Murder overall is a problem. We heard those crime stats last week. Can you give us some answer as to why we're focusing specifically on farm murders? Why this campaign specifically for farm murders?
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much. I think it's actually not such a difficult answer to give. I think if we go look at the ratio per 100,000 for murders in South Africa, a farmer has 4.5 times more chance of being murdered in this country than the average South African citizen. That means that it's 156 farmers per 100,000 that have a chance of being murdered compared to 34 per 100,000 of the average citizen. It means that a farmer has 3 times more chance of being murdered in South Africa than a police officer in this country. And if we go and look in the past 5 years, and more specifically 4 years between 2012 and 2016, it's very clear that there's a 112 or 126% rise in farm attacks specifically, and a 34% increase in murder specifically. And the question we must ask is, all of us ate something this morning, or I think a large amount of us ate something this morning, and without farmers we'll all be hungry.
Have you been able to sort of research or find out why those numbers are, Ian? Why is it that farmers particularly are that vulnerable?
I think there are quite a few aspects to look at. Motive is something that many people question. Some people would like to say that it's simply political. Others would like to say it's only robbery. We very often find that farmers are looked at as weak targets, or easy targets rather, because they are few and far in between. The perpetrators know that it will take long for help to come along. And if we go and look at the amount of violence that is used during farm attacks compared to other violent crimes, especially in cities, the amount of torture that goes along in farm attacks is very often up to 9, even 10 hours long, where in cities we don't usually see these types of crimes carrying on for longer than half an hour, for example. So you know, it's very difficult to say why this type of torture goes along, and it's very difficult also to not contemplate whether it has political reasoning behind it.
Now, we understand, Ian, that yes, the marches are happening in the Western Cape and happening in Pretoria today, but from what we understand, there isn't really a memorandum. There aren't really demands as such that are going to be presented to anyone. What is the call? What is the actual call for today?
I think the call for today is to make people aware of how serious this threat is. We have handed in numerous memorandums over the past 7-8 years regarding farm attacks. We have spoken with the majority of police commissioners. We have spoken with the majority of ministers in police and obviously agriculture. Yet we still don't see something being done. The interesting thing is, the only province where there really is a joint front regarding farm attacks between the police, the Department of Community Safety and provincial government is in the Western Cape. And we saw that united front yesterday in a press conference, but the rest of the country we don't see anything. And Fikile Mbalula only speaks with certain role players. He is not busy integrating different solutions, and there really is no task team that is investigating this or even helping to prevent farm attacks. And without crime intelligence, as with other violent crimes in the country, we can't expect to see a decrease because of police action if we don't get those things into place. What we are saying is that it's crucial that community members act within the framework of the law, that they learn to defend themselves and their families and their labourers, and that labourers are also integrated into a community safety system, because it's not only farmers being impacted by this.
All right, so what are you calling for? Are you calling for farmers to take matters into their own hands? What exactly are you saying?
Well, it's quite simple. Farmers don't, or let's rather say, people in South Africa don't have an alternative anymore but to form part of community safety structures. This is a completely legal system. The South African Police Service Act makes enough room for people to act within the framework of the law in order to defend themselves, their property and their families. And it's very important that we start working together with this. So community policing is of crucial importance if we're going to stop violent crime. I don't think it's the only solution. Obviously, we need a lot of improvement from the police, but with 19,000 people being murdered and 71 farm murders just this year in South Africa, and with a drastic increase of violence in rural areas and specifically on farms, we cannot sit back and wait for government. They are not doing anything. I don't think leadership are competent at the moment to do anything about it, and I don't think there is any form of political will to protect citizens in rural areas in this country, not even discussing the risk in urban areas.
Well, I suppose when you talk about that, Ian, one would hope that you're also referring to the likes of the victim Lotchwas as well, who need to be protected sometimes from farmers as well, that it would work both ways for other people who live in those farming areas, communities.
Definitely. I think the example that we use is in the Eastern Cape, where farmers, taxi associations, community patrollers, not only in towns but also in townships, have taken hands to stop rural crime. And we really can see success in these areas. Places like Elliot, we see that there's a decrease specifically in farm attacks, and where this type of integration with community safety structures is changing the dynamic of community policing. And if we can do this across the country, I can guarantee that we will see a big difference. And this was something that really came out of the hearts of different parts of the community and different communities that came together and said, we cannot allow the farming community and specifically the rural community being under threat. We need to understand that it takes a minimum of 5 years for a farm to be productive again after a farmer was murdered. That means that all of those people that would have gotten work there, all of the support that comes to the local economy is actually ruined by the fact that people are being killed and people are left jobless as well. And we need to make sure that we build a sustainable model to stop these crimes.
Very much for your time, Ian Cameron, head of the AfriForum Community Safety there in our Pretoria studios.